All right. Hi, my name is Debbie Kaltman, and I'm from the Healthcare and Science Career Community here at DePaul. I am here with DePaul Junior, Peter Wild Crea, to talk about his career journey, his really cool current job, and some other things. Peter, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. Can you introduce yourself first?
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me today. My name is Peter Wild Crea. I'm a junior here at DePaul, and I'm currently a health sciences major and Spanish minor. And so, in addition to my school and classes, I also work on campus with the Office of Health Promotion and Wellness. And I work as a peer health educator on the HEAT team, which stands for Health Education Action Team. So that's it's a cool job where we get to do a lot of different education around health topics, and we're here to be sort of an intermediary between DePaul students and professional support on campus and off campus. I also work at Athletico Physical Therapy, and I've been working there for, let's see, I've been around the clinic since my freshman year. I started off by shadowing there. I was really interested in physical therapy. And so I sort of transitioned into a job there. And I've been working there for a little over a year and a half now.
Cool. Well, that's perfect because I wanted to ask you more about working at Athletico. Can you tell us more about what your job is and what you do there on a daily or weekly basis?
Yeah, totally. So one of the things I like about Athletico is that it is a sort of varied job. I get to do a lot of different things in the scope of my work. And so it includes, like, my favorite part is that it includes a lot of patient interaction. I get to work very closely with patients and help carry out their plan of care. So, for example, we have patients coming in and the therapists are treating them, but we're there to also help support the therapist in working on some of the exercises that they're doing. So we're there to do, most times patients have exercises that they've already been working on or that they need some adjustments to. And so we're there to help carry that stuff out. And oftentimes what happens is we get a sheet of exercises that the patients are working on. And so under the supervision of the therapist, we sort of help the patients run through those exercises and remind them what they need to do next and how many, and give them some pointers on different sort of basic things. But then we do like a lot of, particularly right now with COVID, we do a lot of sanitation and stuff. So cleaning and frequently doing laundry, things like that. And then we do a lot of front desk stuff as well. So that includes everything from like new patient intake, which can be interesting because you sometimes get to learn a little bit more about the sort of process that it takes for people to get into seeing a physical therapist.
Sure.
And we do scheduling for patients. Some of us do like more insurance stuff. So there's a lot of different areas. The other thing that's cool about the clinic I work at is that we have, I think, 5 physical therapists working there, and we have an occupational therapist. So I get to work alongside him as well as all of the physical therapists. So it's cool because I get to see so many different areas.
Yes,
Um,
experience.
yeah, so it's really great.
I know you said that you became interested in this position because you're interested in physical therapy, but can you tell us how you actually got this job and how you transitioned from shadowing into working?
Yeah. So my freshman year at DePaul, I took a health, I think it was Health 120, which that may have changed. I don't know. That was a while
We'll look it up.
ago. It was a basically intro to health sciences class.
Okay.
And so it was with Dr. Knott, who works at Rosalind Franklin.
Mm.
And I don't know if he teaches any other classes, but I know at the time he was teaching this class at DePaul as well. And it was a great class that you come and you get to see all these different healthcare professions and different folks come and talk to us. We had doctors and podiatrists and physical therapists and respiratory therapists all across the board. And we had a physical therapist come in who was really just a fantastic presenter, and he worked for Athletico. And so after hearing his presentation, I just sort of looked into physical therapy a little bit more because I knew I wanted to be in healthcare, but I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. Um, and so I started looking at it more and I was like, oh, this seems like a really cool profession. Like, I wonder what I can do. And I figured a good first step would be to just shadow and see if I liked it. So I just basically emailed, just sort of cold emailed and said, hey, this guy from Athletico came and talked to my class a little bit earlier. I'd love to come in and just see what a physical therapist does. It was really convenient because it was the Athletico in DePaul's Welcome Center. And I was living in the dorms at the time, so I would pretty much walk across the street. And so I shadowed there for probably, I think it was all of spring quarter pretty much every week. So I was there for a while. And towards the end of my shadowing, I asked the clinic manager, who was also a therapist there, hey, would you like, if there was a job opening here, because I knew there was other aides working there that I could see while I was shadowing, said, hey, if there is ever a job opening here, like, I'd really love to apply for the job. And so she told me, like, yeah, we have actually a few people transitioning out because a lot of the folks who work are students. So frequently at the end of a year, we lose a person or two just because of graduating and moving or going on to graduate school. And so I ended up applying online through Athletico has, I believe, an online like application that you can fill out for all their different locations. And so I went on there and applied, and I just selected the location, and I had at this point a good relationship with some of the therapists there and the clinic manager. And so from there, I actually ended up going home over the summer back to Minnesota. But they were really great and really flexible. And so I sort of at the beginning of summer applied and got the job, and then came back and started working once the school year started up again.
Cool. Okay. And I think I saw on your LinkedIn that you are part of Pathways Honors and you are pre-med, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about thinking about physical therapy, medicine, and also how this rehabilitation aid position is helping you prepare for that future.
Yeah, it's a really good question. So initially when I decided, like, all right, this is a job I'm really interested in, it was because I was really interested in physical therapy. And so as my just school has gone on, I've realized that while I think physical therapy is really interesting and it's a field I really value, I've realized that my interests, I think, lie in going to like medical school. And so I've changed gears a little bit in thinking that that's what I want to do. But with this job, I mean, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but the cool thing is, like, I get such close interaction with the patients, and I think there are certainly jobs out there for undergraduates that have patient interaction. But one of the things that I really value is that not only do I have patient interaction, like, I have relationships with patients, because people come in 2 to 3 times a week for physical therapy. And so even if I'm working, 2-3 days a week, I usually work the same days. And so I frequently see the same patients week after week. And so I can think of, over the last year and a half, a number of different patients that I got to know well, that I have had relationships with. And so there's part of it that's like just learning how to interact with patients in a medical setting, and learning how to build relationships with them within the constraints of a visit, when you also have to get things done. And there's also a piece of it that I've learned I've learned a lot about physical therapy, but I've also learned a lot from the physical therapist there about, like, how the body works and how it functions. And so I haven't taken an anatomy course yet. I will be taking one in the next year sometime for my major. But even without that, I feel like I already have, if I think about the time when I started this job to now, I feel like I have a way better understanding of sort of our mechanics of the body and a lot of the anatomy that I picked up just sort of on the job. The other thing is that it's given me a really, I would say, useful window into just sort of the functioning of the medical world, particularly like some of the frustrations that come along with like dealing with insurance. I knew before this job that insurance was complicated and could be frustrating, but I've really gotten to like see what that looks like and how like our insurance system functions within the medical world.
Sure.
And that's something that we've talked about in classes that I've had, but until you see it firsthand, it's really hard to sort of actually conceptualize the system.
Yeah,
I
that's
feel
really
like
cool
I
that you
have,
get that experience.
yeah, a much better grasp on that now.
Cool. What advice do you have for other students who might be in their first year or second year who are interested in exploring a clinical health career?
Yeah. So I think what I would say is to lead with your passion, um, because as I've gone through school, um, I've tried to let that be the thing that sort of has decided what I do, because whatever I end up doing, I want to be passionate about it, because regardless of if you choose a career in like clinical health care, it's going to be a challenging path, whether you're a nurse or a PA or a physical therapist or a podiatrist or a doctor. Like, it doesn't matter what you do, they're all very challenging paths. um, and so if you pick a path that you're not that passionate about,
Mm,
it's going to be 10 times harder. And at the end of the day, you might not be happy. Um, but if you go forward and follow the things that you're passionate about, I think that's where you get into areas where you really find your interests, and it makes those challenging classes or those challenging jobs a lot easier. Um, the other thing with that, though, is allow your passions to change.
mm,
Um, I started in really thinking I wanted to do physical therapy. I was super passionate about that. And after working here for a while at Athletico, I still really value it, but I've realized that I have some other interests that I really am interested in pursuing. Um, and so um, in that, I think it's important that like it's great to get experience and stuff right now, but there's only so much we can see and do as undergrads in a pandemic. And so knowing that, like, you giving yourself the flexibility to let that change and let that grow as you learn more and more. um, so that would be one thing, is just like follow your passions. The other thing I would say is something that I'm frankly struggling with right now, is not trying to take on too much at one time.
mm,
um, there's a lot of pressure, particularly on like pre health profession students that
mm.
do have like a million things on their resume. You know, you're supposed to have patient contact hours, you're supposed to have volunteer experience, you're supposed to have work experience, you're supposed to have research, and you're supposed to have straight A's, and you're supposed to do other things on top of that.
Yeah, it's a
And
lot.
it's like it's important, and all those things do need to happen for professional school. Unfortunately, that's sort of just the reality. Um, but there's also a lot of time. And I always thought when I was in my first year of school, like, I'm gonna finish school and go straight to grad school. But like, I realized it's not realistic. Like, I want to take a gap year. I want to just be a human for a year. Um, and so not taking on so much that you like I've had the experience of taking on too much where it makes it hard to focus on school.
Mm,
And school is really the priority right now. And so all these other experiences are important, but like that should be the first priority. But it's also like, this is undergrad, it's okay to have a life too, and do some things that are enjoyable. And so um and I think if you go along with going with things that you're passionate with, you won't have that feeling, as long as you're doing things that you're passionate about. So those would be my two pieces of advice, I would say.
well, thank you. We are absolutely here for following your passions, allowing your passions and goals to change over time, and having some balance in your life. Absolutely. Well, this segues perfectly. You were involved with a lot of things on campus. You're doing research as a peer health educator or part of student organizations. Which of these experiences have been the most meaningful to you, and why? They don't have to necessarily be directly related to your career goals, but what's been most meaningful to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think Um, so yeah, I would say there are probably two major things. And the first one that I think of is not actually related to my career. Um, I guess I should say it's not directly related to my career. Because so last year I worked with the Division of Mission and Ministry as a service immersion intern.
Yeah.
And so myself and one other student helped coordinate all of DePaul's service immersion programs, um, which it's a really fantastic program. And I've been on two myself, and I led one of them, um, and they're just really they're alternative service immersion programs. So I think there's a lot of issues that come along with doing like service projects,
Mhm.
and so this office is really conscientious of that, and they try to go about these in a way that's not harmful.
Mhm.
Um, and I would say that experience of working in that office and going on service immersions and being exposed to these people who I worked with peers who were all different majors of all different backgrounds. It was like just a bunch of different types of people, and I would say that was one of the most valuable experiences. One, because it gave me like a community here at DePaul.
Mhm.
Um, it was like it was the first like sense of like truly feeling at home here that I think I had. Um, but it also gave me it helped me grow my sort of um, vision of what it means to like honor someone's humanity
Mhm.
and human dignity. And and so I say indirectly because it wasn't related to health
Mhm.
care at all. That wasn't like the focus of service immersions or this office. But that core sort of principle of like human dignity and just valuing each person is something that like is absolutely necessary for anyone that wants to work in service of any kind. It doesn't matter like where you're working. Um, and so I would say that was extremely impactful. And I think that's a good sort of like nudge to people that what you're doing doesn't necessarily have to be science related 24/7.
Sure,
And
absolutely.
it's frankly probably better if it's not always science related. The other thing that has been really valuable began this year,
Mhm.
and it's a student organization that I started called DePaul Organization for Intersectional Health. Um,
Cool.
and that's been really fun because that's sort of been like a passion project for me.
Mhm.
Um, so we're a student org focused on educating future healthcare professionals, so undergrad students specifically, on healthcare issues in healthcare, essentially related to health and wellness. Particularly, we focus on like issues like health disparities and social justice in healthcare, um,
Cool.
and so we learn more about that. We talk about it, and we dive into different topics, and that's been really impactful because that's been a place where I can sort of explore a little bit more, and I have a lot more freedom to explore and to talk about to really get into these things that I'm interested in. And I can it's been really fun to do that, to have a little bit more leadership and to have a position where I can really um, explore and feel like I'm able to provide useful information to people.
Absolutely. So when I interview you again in 5 years, beginning of 2026, which sounds very far from now, what do you hope that we can talk about in terms of your career?
Oh, good question. um, I so in 5 years, I would hope that I'm somewhere in the latter half of medical school. Um, what that's going to look like, I don't know. I'm hoping to take at least a gap year, if not two. So in that sense, I'd either be in the third or fourth year of medical school. Um, there's some programs that I think are really interesting that are combined degrees, so that could add a few years. So hopefully I'll still be in school. But hopefully we'll be able to talk about what medical school looks like.
Mm,
And I'd love to talk about, hopefully, the value of a gap year and taking time in between
mhm.
undergrad and graduate school. Um, and I hope that as a hopeful medical student, I hope that we can also talk about ways in which um, students as undergrad and medical students can start making a difference
Mm,
even as students before they're in the field.
that's awesome. I hope that we can talk about all those things. Any additional advice for fellow students or anything else you want to add?
um, I don't think I have any other advice right now. I would say something we've been talking a lot about in the Office of Health Promotion and Wellness this year, particularly in the context of like virtual everything right now, um, and with lots of different things going on in the backdrop of also trying to do school, is like acknowledging for yourself and for the people around you that right now is a challenging time. Like regardless of what you're trying to do, who you are, things are challenging right now. And so I would just encourage everyone, particularly in this time, to be extra kind to yourself, to give
Mhm.
yourself some extra grace and some space to just be, because I think all of our thresholds for doing things and staying focused are a lot lower right now. And I think that's okay and that's normal. I think we're all experiencing that. And so um, I know there's this pressure to constantly be doing more and doing the next thing and adding to our resumes. But I just would also encourage students to be conscientious of how they're feeling and to be kind to themselves during this time.
Absolutely. I think that's a perfect note for us to end. Take care and be kind um, at this time. So thank you so much, Peter, for talking to me and sharing your experiences and sharing your advice and reminding us to be flexible and to be kind to ourselves as well.